Welcome back, 9 to noon. It is time for Vikes Bites. And that's brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. It's a Clearwater, Minnesota company. You can shop online. A box of meat will show up at your doorstep. You can go to local Coburn's locations, local co-ops in the rural areas. And, of course, they're proud sponsors of Gopher Athletics. Injury report from yesterday, gentlemen. Blake Cashman now, by all accounts, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, Alec. By the way, a lot of these Vike Bites are directed your way. So
cool.
Be ready. Blake Cashman listed as a non-participant in what are probably just kind of really soft walkthrough-esque type of things on a short week going to L.A. Having to prepare probably without Blake on Thursday night. What do you think we missed with Blake on Sunday against the Kitties, and what maybe then needs to be worked on into Thursday night's game if he's unable to go with his turf toe?
No, he's not playing. I mean, didn't O'Connell say at the Friday press conference it's 2 games?
He didn't say explicitly, and he didn't say early this week, but I would say it's very safe.
I mean, he's
very safe to assume.
He's out. Perfect.
But to answer your question, Nordo, what they missed, I mean, it just felt like there was more space over the middle of the field just throughout the entire game. And I think about a lot of those, like Tim Patrick little digs toward the middle of the field. I think if Blake Cashman is in, it just feels like there's less space both underneath and like over the middle. What this Vikings defense, what they do is a lot of times they'll play with 2 underneath defenders. And Blake Cashman and Andrew Van Ginkel are so good in coverage underneath that it doesn't feel like there's just 2 players, but it did on Sunday. And so it's going to be incumbent upon whether it's Van Ginkel playing off-ball linebacker, which they've done, whether it's Kamu Grugier-Hill, whether it's Ivan Pace and Josh Metellus. Like they're going to have to constrict the space as best they can, but they're not going to be able to do it probably as well as Blake Cashman has.
If I missed this, I apologize. But what led to? Okay, so you got Dallas Turner inside early in the game. So we're gonna dust off Dallas. We're gonna move him inside. He's a physical guy, and that could be the run stopping portion, maybe the replacement for Cashman. I mean, it felt like it lasted about 2 seconds. Then Van Ginkel was the guy playing inside almost every. Like, what led to that?
Well, he only played 4 snaps the entire game, right?
Yeah, Dallas was in that spot early, and it could be a couple of things that could have changed that. One, if the Lions change up any of their run kind of scheme in the middle of the game, like probably the best person to counter that and to understand what gaps he has to fill in this defense is Andrew Van Ginkel. So that's probably why they switched that up. The other aspect of it is, I mean, Dallas just hasn't played a ton of that spot over the course of his career. So it's a good idea for a guy who has the acumen to do it and who can rush the passer and can stop the run. To have him in that spot makes a lot of sense. But when push comes to shove, and this is a game you have to win against a division rival, like, you're going to go with the people probably you feel most comfortable with in that moment. And I think that's why that shift happened, because there's just the utmost trust from this staff in Van Ginkel doing whatever job he has to do to the optimal level.
And O'Connell kind of mentioned in his presser that game flow kind of dictated, right? That it dictated we had the right guys in the right spots, and therefore busy room, full room, right? A competitive room. And that kind of also made them decide which pieces to put on the board.
I was bouncing around the locker room yesterday, and the one thing I don't think I realized in real time or even on film was there was a pretty aggressive back and forth chess match going on between like run strategy between each team. And early on, the Vikings obviously like punched them in the mouth. They adapted pretty quickly. Then there was a Vikings adaptation back. So there was a lot going on in that game. One Vikings player yesterday in the locker room was like a guy who's been around for a long time. He said to me, he's like, Ben Johnson, man. Like there is a immense respect. And then I've heard from some people in Detroit of like they believe the Vikings are the toughest test they've had this year. So I think that was just it was just a high end kind of back and forth in that game.
Vikes Bites. The run game, specifically with the defense, Mr. Lewis. Jordan Mason got the Vikings for 100 yards in week 2. But other than that, this was the first time really from, again, not building massive advantages in games. We're touting statistically how stout this Vikings defense is. But again, those massive leads can dictate the game flow what the Ben Johnsons of the world didn't have to do versus LaFleur and Ulbrich/Salah's group in with the Giants in London, or Jets in London. So when we see what we saw and their ability to absolutely gash us, are we continuing to note that Cashman isn't in the mix? Are we tipping our cap to the Montgomery and Gibbs tandem? Or are we possibly thinking this is something that Flores has to consider moving forward, how they got gashed against the run?
I'm not too concerned about it. I attribute a lot of what Detroit did on the ground. The one explosive, the Jahmyr Gibbs 45-yard run. Ooh. I mean, it was a bad fit by the Vikings defense. Players were in the wrong spots. And then that guy put a move on Cam Bynum that very few people in the world probably can move like that. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is, I wrote today, like he's like a video game. It's like you're playing him with the video game, the way he can move. It is unbelievable. So I'm not too concerned. Like if you go back a year and a half now, the Harrison Phillipses, the Jonathan Bullards, they really have done a admirable job stopping the run. And so it's not a massive concern, but you're exactly right to mention that the game score and the game script affects a lot of that stuff. So we'll see. I think Kyron Williams is a phenomenal back watching him on film. And so I think the test is going to be, I mean, they're going to be tested tomorrow night.
The interesting thing about Kyron, and it sounds like you've watched more than me, well, he has 9 touchdowns this year, 8 on the ground. His yards per carry is 3.8. It's not great. You know, and I get the line in front of them's had a lot of shuffle to it, and you have those rookies, one undrafted, a left guard. But when you see a number like that, a fat number like 8 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving, he's vital to their offense. Oh, the yards per carry is 3.8. It's just weird.
Yeah, yards per carry, it probably has not been phenomenal, but it was interesting. I was looking at some advanced stats last night, like success rate on the ground. They're like top 3 in the NFL,
wow.
Which kind of surprised me. But part of it probably is, to your point, the interior of the offensive line. The Rams do a lot of like double team vertical push run stuff, and Kyron Williams has the vision to either press forward or bounce it outside. So I just, again, with everything with this matchup tomorrow night, it's gonna be tedious. I truly believe that, and stopping the run is a part of it.
Vikes Bites! I got a couple more for you, Alec, here. Is there potential for a feast with our defensive front on Matt Stafford and that lack of mobility, an injured offensive line, starting a rookie named Bo Limmer at center? And they're sweating Noteboom potentially returning to the mix, but still an issue they've dealt with all year long. He's been sacked 17 in their first 6. Can our group get to him a handful of times tomorrow night?
I think so, definitely. And I went back and watched last week. They played the Raiders, and toward the end of the game, the Raiders defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, who was very, very close with Brian Flores, they worked together in New England. Patrick started to do the Flores thing. He would line up 8, and Stafford and that Rams offensive line didn't know who was coming, who was dropping. There was a near Van Ginkel type of pick in that game for the Raiders. So, it'll be interesting to see the Vikings approach. But if they are lining up guys and bringing it against that pass protection unit, trying to make them be able to sort through it all, wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Final Vike Bite. Vike Bite! Thank you, Thousand Hills. Ty Chandler. So this actually popped in my head earlier this morning, so I wanted to add it into the mix and get your thoughts on it. So we're kind of picturing a tandem, and we need Aaron Jones. We love what Aaron Jones is doing to the run game. But Ty Chandler, his evolution, and that tandem is going to be important, taking reps off each other's tires. But Aaron Jones and what he can do, big part of this offense. We saw when he was missed against the Jets how things changed. Outside of his 8-yard per attempt, he went 10 for 82 at a couple of big runs against the Niners week 2. He's averaged 2 yards a carry against the Giants, 1.8 against Houston, 1.6 against the Green Bay Packers, 2 against the Giants. He only had 2 carries for 4 yards against the Kitties. He only played 11 snaps. Is there potentially an effectiveness and efficiency, an issue that Kevin O'Connell and company are seeing with Ty that might lend him to maybe seeing fewer snaps as soon as tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, the Vikings run game, when it's not been Aaron Jones, I think they have the lowest yards per carry in the NFL.
I tried to write it off on the Jets. Like Aaron Jones gets hurt And then, okay, so that screws up your game plan, right? And now you got to adjust on the fly. There was he's had 2 or 3 nice runs around the edge that have actually been called back because of penalties. So that's bad luck there. But overall, just the combination of it not looking good, and now you're seeing the snaps start to dwindle from more than a third week 1 to 11 on Sunday. I think we're starting to see maybe a problem there, and maybe Kevin O'Connell is addressing it with reps.
Yeah, and Ty Chandler in pass protection has not been phenomenal either. I mean, he had the holding call on Sunday, but just in general, it just doesn't really impress me. Part of me thinks he doesn't look as physical as he did last year, in that Bengals game. I don't know if that's accurate. And then part of me also wonders if Aaron Jones' ability just covers up for some of the interior of the offensive line's leakiness in that phase. So it is, to me, that entire aspect of this offense.
Ed Ingram's going to catch a stray when we're talking about Ty Chandler?
I'm not, I mean, maybe. But
it's all part of the conversation.
I just think if you take out Aaron Jones' ability, you're just, it's removing a critical piece to the Jenga tower, and this thing's starting to topple very quickly with just how important he's been. So, that's an aspect I'm watching. The other aspect is receiver. It just doesn't feel like they've gotten enough out of Jordan Addison. And I've thought Jalen Naylor has looked really good all year. I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
He featured Naylor more than Addison early in the last game.
And I don't know why you wouldn't, the way that he's playing in comparison. And I don't know if it's lingering ankle stuff with Addison, though he did beat them over the top in that one really critical explosive play. But that's just the other offensive spot that I've got my eyes on.
With the Vikings and the Rams, do you think this game against his former team and Sean McVay makes Kevin O'Connell uptight?
I don't think it makes him uptight. I think there's probably a really a burning fire in him to beat a guy who,
what about the other guy?
Yeah,
the other guy's the mentor.
Of course.
So now all of a sudden we got Noteboom coming back this game. Of course we do. We got Kupp coming back this game. Of course we do. You got Nakua going limited. Okay, so their Vox JB Long 2 hours ago, and then everybody's going to be right with the speculation. It's just too early in the 21-day window. Okay, we'll see. I don't think he's going to play, but he went limited on the practice report yesterday. They didn't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, from a McVay, I'm just saying that there's angst, or there's not vitriol, but there's gamesmanship between
pride.
These two.
It's pride.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's like brotherly pride.
Yeah, it's ego. It's confidence in yourself. It's what should be the situation. From the time Kevin O'Connell became the head coach here, he people have just described him as, he worked with Sean McVay. And I'm sure for him, it's I am my own. I've done this on my own. I was critical there. So I think and
then when you talk with Brandon Staley on the side, who's like an ancillary assistant for the Niners, he's like, "You did what?" He was what, head coach of the Chargers?
Brandon Staley just catch a stray.
Yeah, no.
What?
But Staley's like, yeah, I used to work with McVay. Because that's high on his resume now.
It's going to be for this team to respond from adversity.
Stray,
yeah, Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley on Minnesota
let's
radio.
Continue. Yeah.
I kind of like Brandon Staley.
Yeah, me too. He's a nice guy.
Defense was awful in San Diego.
Atrocious. He's like doing
Chargers.
Star Wars, trying to get them to cover a guy. I don't really know what was going on, but now they have the best deep. It's crazy with the same personnel pretty much. Jesse Minter has come into Los Angeles and produced one of the best defense in the NFL.
Harbaugh, though.
Yeah.
Are the Lions 75% or higher to win the NFC North? And I put a fat number on it purposely.
I'm not going that high.
Well, they've beaten us. Okay, so yes, they are better than the Minnesota Vikings off what they did last year. They beat them, so it can be a 51-49 equation, or however you want to look at it. And I know what I saw or what I've seen in Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers outfit. Detroit's better than Green Bay. And Jordan Love is not in Jared Goff's class. So I ain't tripping on that right now.
So you're only considering then the Vikings. You're not considering the Packers being part of that. Because in the world of arbitrary percentages, then that would bring the Lions down. You have to include the Packers as a part of that pie.
Yeah, but that's why I put the number that high purposely to see which way it goes. With
I wouldn't go that high at all. And I think both the Packers and the Vikings could vie for that. I really do. Detroit, like offensively, that outfit is as impressive from a schematic and a personnel standpoint as you're going to find across the NFL.
Yep.
Maybe besides Patrick Mahomes, seems like a good player. But I defensively, I just think they're still very gettable. They should go out and swing big for an edge rusher.
Yeah, Max Crosby.
Because if they give up draft picks, somehow Brad Holmes is going to use the other draft picks and draft the greatest. What that guy's done in the draft is beyond what percentages would ever think would be possible.
And I got to credit Les Snead too. I mean, Snead, he went mercenary on it, played fantasy football, gave up all the draft picks, all this stuff. Won the Super Bowl, acted like a fool on the microphone at the parade, being, like F the people who thought we shouldn't have done this, whatever.
Yeah, it was F them picks or something like that.
Yeah, thank you.
He won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, don't talk to people like that, let alone your fans. But secondly, now, 75, 80% down the road on the game calling depth chart, he's hitting on some. I mean, they're, with the picks that they do have, you have, who was the one that I really liked in there? Fisk, you mentioned, who was the second round pick.
What about Verse?
Verse. Well, I'm trying to eliminate the first and the second round picks. Where is the, Kobe Turner in the third round is a sweet hit.
Great, yeah.
Kyron Williams in the fifth round is a sweet hit.
Great hit.
Yeah, there's one more in there too. But anyway, hopefully I get a chance to see you out there, maybe today or tomorrow.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It should be fun. These Thursday games are wild. Hopefully Al Michaels can be entertained tomorrow night.
Well, he doesn't have to drive far to go to the game.
If I see Kirk Herbstreit in the press spot, I've never asked for a picture. I don't do any of that
You're
stuff.
a college football guy too. You dig that.
If I see Herbstreit, that's just going to be so cool.
You're going to get lost in his eyes.
Yeah, I just respect him so much.
Yeah, he's really good.
So if I see,
I'm serious. His eyes are unbelievable.
Who would you prefer to meet? Kirk Herbstreit or Gary Danielson?
Kirk Herbstreit. Herbstreit is...
Remember when you were coming on 9 to noon for like one of the first 5 times and you followed Brad Nessler?
Yeah, you had Brad Nessler.
I think
I was asking Brad Nessler.
Oh, that's right.
And I was like, I was as nervous as I was excited just the same way I would have been if Will Reichert kicked from 68.
Yeah.
I told Nordo, if they had him out there, if he hit from 68, you know how they say no cheering in the press box? I don't know what I would have done. I would have fallen to the ground. It would have been an absolute...
Gary Danielson's he walked into the Army Navy Radio Row. Guardsy and I were there. It's like a mafia don.
Really?
Like people are walking around kissing his hand type of stuff.
Yeah.
Gary Danielson's OG.
Yeah, he's OG.
Super cool.
Yeah, he's original game day.
I'll let you.
He's OG.
I'll let you get back to the radio.
Good seeing you.
I'll see you out there.
And good morning.
Should be a fun game. Good morning.
9 to noon. It's 11:20. Pressure Points around the corner. We have a sponsor for it, but first.
The Fan, along with 2 men in a junk truck, they want to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand. It's the National Cash Contest. Easy enough for you. You just go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword bank. Might win $1,000 with the keyword bank at KFAN. Fan. Welcome back, 9 to noon. Something that we enjoy doing in advance of Vikings games. We call it Pressure Points, and I believe it is brought to you by a new sponsor that we get to welcome 9 to noon.
Sue Cup, welcome to the Covenant. Sue Cup, Pressure Points provided by Sue Cup and SueCup.com, SUKUP.com. You'll hear more about that as we move forward. Welcome to the Covenant, everybody, at Sue Cup. And Sue Cup is a manufacturing company. In fact, it's the world's largest family-owned and operated manufacturer of grain storage, drying, and handling equipment. So it sounds like a perfect match for 9 to noon when we head into the Fan on the Farm portion of the equation, which we are wont to do. And when you go to the website, SueCup.com, SUKUP.com, you will read that part about the manufacturing company for those in commercial and or just farming. And you'll also read, being a good listener, this is Eugene Sukup, the co-founder. Being a good listener is important. The people who run the company aren't the only ones with good ideas. We want to listen to the farmers and dealers who buy our products. Their feedback helps us do our job better. Eugene Sukup, the co-founder of Sukup and Sukup.com. So welcome to the Covenant. We're here to unfurl some pressure points for you and just see where this relationship goes. So God bless you and everybody with your company, and thanks for coming into the Covenant.
Pressure Points. Brought to you by Sukup. Justin Jefferson addressing the media yesterday, PA, and he was asked about how his relationship was with Jordan Addison. So I'm starting off Pressure Points with number 3, looking into a Thursday night game.
Yeah, my relationship is great with Jordan. I mean, every single day I try to build that relationship more and more. He's still young. He's still, kind of getting comfortable with the system and everything. But, about the penalties, that's not really something that we kind of talk about. Of course, this is his first time really getting penalties like that. And that's just, we have to just be more dialed in to, our alignments, making sure who's on the ball, who's off the ball. And just, talking to him throughout the game, making sure he's still in the game mentally. He didn't really get that many targets and touches last game. So throughout the game, just talking to him and making sure he's still in the game, high spirits, because, we need him. He's definitely a guy to give us a spark and make a play downfield, which he did on that long play downfield. So we're always going to, need those type of plays, and we always need him to be into the game mentally. So I'm always going to be that type of person to, give him some encouragement and make sure that he's into the game.
This was kind of jarring audio for me, PA. That was terrific from Justin Jefferson, where, big money guy, highlight star of the team, a captain, all of that. You're looking on him to get 10, 12 targets a game, make plays, make everybody money and win games. That was really the first time that I can think of in his time here in purple, where in some ways he was truly kind of drawing out verbally him being big brother, him being leader on team. And he said it essentially directly or indirectly 3 or 4 times about needing to keep Jordan Addison mentally engaged in the game. He gave him props. He noted this penalty thing hasn't been an oft-occurring issue, but we're trying to keep him in high spirits. He didn't get a lot of love and a lot of action in previous games, so we were trying to make sure he's engaged, he's in high spirits. I love that audio from JJ. I'm putting Addison in the pressure point.
Well, that is the newest display of a born leader, of a true leader, because Justin has been that guy before. Getting the cachet with the cash, or the cash that provides the cachet, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Justin is an elite football mind who genuinely cares. That's the best I've ever heard Justin Jefferson explain something lovingly, analytically, and quasi-critically about somebody, A, on the team, and B, with whom he shares a meeting room. Because Justin he's had eyeball rolls with Cousins when he's been talking to the media.
Yeah.
And he just, there are just times I look back at it and I adore Justin Jefferson. So it's not like I look at him like, wow, what an arrogant fool. It's not like that. It's just like the more he grows, I bet you that he becomes more concise. He becomes more poignant and pointed while being more concise and getting the point across.
Yeah.
And that's what he did right there. I mean, you're right about the mental aspect of it. But see, players mostly, but coaches too, when you listen closely to things, that what they drop in with, it's like so-and-so, or I have to be better at. It sounds like a 2. It's really an 8.5. It's just I've just noticed over the course of time, specifically when he's like, when it comes to where who the up guy is and where you're lined up, he just has to be better from a formation standpoint.
Yeah.
You can just tell that when they watch that back, it's just more amplification or just stabbing, in that they know with that 1 3rd and 4 they most likely should have won the game right there.
Yeah.
And Darnold could have done a better job. I don't think Jefferson could have done better. He ran the route perfectly, and he's not going to catch every single pass, even if it hits his hands. It's going 100 miles per hour.
Or O'Connell on the Chandler toss fumble in the Jets. He's kind of like, we really need him. He's caught 1,000 of those
example.
before. That's not how he reacted internally,
right,
when reviewing it, certainly.
But then Addison, you learn Addison was in the way. So for Justin to say what he said and the way he said it, it's eating at him. It was eating. It's not like laying in bed staring at the ceiling fan being like, well, this whole thing sucks. I got to get out of here. No, it plays back to Monday when I'm like, I need help changing my face because I can't figure out what to think about this game. Quite honestly, I don't think the Vikings played as well as I know they can play. There were things in that game where I'm like, man, that just, I'm just not used to seeing it. And I just know they can be better. But then they got good. Then Darnold, after I think that pick to Branch, he got good, man. He hit like 80% of his passes. Yards per attempt went up. But, was it how important was it to the shape of the game? Yeah, it was important. But, I mean, you needed the improbable Ivan Pace scoop and score to even have a chance at that 3rd and 4. So was it really as close as, okay, we'll move on to the Rams. So, but with the face change part of it, that Addison piece plays into it, where it's like there are things that I just was not used to seeing, where I couldn't wrap my mind around exactly the who, what, where, when, and why of who they are. And my level of respect for the Detroit Lions, all the way up until a couple of years ago, when they had that Hard Knocks bit, they're a really, really good team.
Yeah.
They're a stacked, good, tough, organized team. Likewise for the Minnesota Vikings. They hit the wire together. Lions got their nose down this time. We'll see what happens next time.
Pressure Points.
Brought to you by Suka.
He's the con.
Cam Bynum joins Dan Barrero weekly during Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrero. And they were chatting about that first touchdown that Jahmyr Gibbs had, the 46-yarder. And here he is explaining the missed tackle situation with that.
That's the toughest tackle in football, coming out of the post from 20 yards deep and having a runner with a two-way go, one-on-one. But what I'm taught in one of my best ways to tackle that would be to go inside out more. I kind of caught myself running too wide because he stretched it out wide, so I kind of ran sideways.
Yep.
But the best thing I could have done would to be run down and across more instead of running sideways, then down, and letting him cut back. But watching film throughout the week, I saw he wasn't much of a cutback runner. He normally stuttered and kept it on the outside, so that was the thought process going into it, but then my footwork got bad. So it was really, like I said, I own up to that for sure, being a mistake that I made with my angle on approaching him, and it made a good back look great on that play. And he was, I got to give credit to that, but at the end of the day, that's all a lack of technique on my end.
What a I don't know what the question was. What a response.
Well, it was the question on the long touchdown to Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's how he took it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember the play, as he said, he goes wide and Gibbs just cuts back in, and he's off to the end zone. So the pressure point here, simply enough, is the Rams. Cam Bynum's going to bounce back from that. You heard him. He takes it seriously, goes through his film watching. He thought he had some tells and a take and a talker on Jahmyr Gibbs, and then he was left in the dust. But now moving forward, this is a Rams team that's gone triple digits in the run game. You talked a bit with Alec Lewis about Kyron Williams. Pressure point is on this defense to stop that run, PA.
Right, and the getting my head wrapped around the Kyron Williams portion of the equation is key here. 3.8 yards per carry is 3.8 yards per carry. It ain't great.
No, it's not.
And Kyron's not super fast. But they're running plays that McVay and the staff are so good that they're getting him into the end zone from all over the place. And he catches it a lot more than I thought.
14 catches as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he might have had 32, 42 last year, something like that.
So he's getting 22 touches a game, PA.
Oh, wow, 22?
Run and pass, about 19 carries and 2 or 3 catches.
Yeah, so I'm just not super familiar with him, and until you get ready for a game, and he just has a more multifaceted game than I knew he had. I'm a fan from afar.
Yeah, I wonder if part of that too. he is. I mean, can Blake Corum push O-line into the end zone? We're talking, can you get 2 yards at the doorstep with the rookie kid from Michigan like he did at the Big House versus Kyron?
Yeah, Corum's long as 12.
Exactly.
He's a third-round pick. They used him more early than they're using him now, which means they got thoroughly bored with him. And they also have with Cooper Kupp coming back.
Oh, Ronnie Rivers.
Yeah. I don't think he plays much. He's a special teams guy, but. With Kupp coming back, I mean, things are going to change. They are having problems with their left guard. So they used a left guard who I think was a veteran, and now Justin Dedick, whatever you say his last name, he was undrafted from USC, made his first start last game. And Havenstein, the right tackle, he's really good. And at least he used to be really good. So he's played there forever. But they have Alaric Jackson, who plays at left tackle, fourth year from Iowa. It's from what I understand, he's getting better. But it's the middle part, man. It's Kevin Dotson, fifth year from Louisiana. Just nothing great from what I hear. Bo Limmer, the center, rookie from Arkansas, fourth rounder. They like him. And this will be a 6th start. So they drafted him to be the starting center.
Did they? He was a 6th rounder.
Yeah.
That's the note I have.
Maybe a 6th rounder, but he's making his 6th start. So he started every
nutty.
game.
Like he won the race in training camp as a 6th rounder. That's impressive.
But I don't recall Noteboom being of the game-changing variety. He's only played a game or two, but the Noteboom will be coming back pretty soon.
Pressure Points. Brought to you by Sukup. Pressure Point leads me here, PA, and I'm just going to play this audio, and we'll talk it out from there.
36 from the Vikings 21. Goff puts Jahmyr Gibbs to his left out of the shotgun. He takes the Frank Ragnow snap with a 4-point lead. Goff throws over the middle, caught first down to the 15. And now Khalif Raymond gets loose inside the 5, touchdown. 21-yard touchdown for Khalif Raymond, his first this year, and Detroit leads 27-17.
Way too much in the way of conversation, Paul.
So, and I'm glad, and I think Max uploaded these highlights. Thank you, Max, for doing that, by the way. And I'm glad he left that bit from Pete Bursich in here, because not to completely harp on the defense here, in the end, you have that 3rd and 4 and the opportunity to get out with an undefeated record and a win over the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. Shaq Griffin, talking about it with Ben Lieber after the game, he mentioned a ton of miscommunication on defense throughout the game. Now, that doesn't mean that this hasn't happened in every game to some extent, right?
Yeah.
But in the first game you've had without Blake Cashman, somebody else wearing the dot, now and the first loss of the season, now you start to hear people talking about it. I'm watching Gilmore trying to chase Raymond across the field laterally, and he falls down. Coverage confusion on the Amon-Ra St. Brown TD. And you hit it on the last pressure point. Cooper Kupp's going to be back. What does Cooper Kupp do? When you give him space, he'll get you running. And McVay is so good in the same way that we love Kevin O'Connell scheming Justin Jefferson open. He's just as good at getting Cooper Kupp in the exact right spot at the right time with some green in front of him. And so the pressure point for me is, I don't care if it's just Tutu Atwell, Tyler Johnson, and Cooper on the field, and Kyron's just on the bench. It doesn't matter to me. If Cooper's on the field, he's a problem. And that is a massive pressure point for this Vikings defense.
And the way to fix it is to batter Matthew Stafford, who is not going to run away from it. And it's not just the battering and the sacks, it's the hits and the pressures, where I didn't add it up after the Lions game, but the Vikings were top 3 in the NFL, or top 2 maybe, if you took the pressures, the hits, and the sacks, added them all up.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of what coaches do behind the scenes. And they were 1 or 2. They were 1, 2, or 3, something like that. So it's with these tackles they have, and Grenard and Van Ginkel, I think, has 5 sacks. He's up to 5 sacks. And Grenard has 5, and Patrick Jones is stuck on 5. So you have a bevy of players who can rush it. And that's going to be the formula to, I believe, slowing this team. Now, if you, without Cashman, are having problems between your linebackers and your safeties against Ben Johnson, well, then be ready for that, the same amount against McVay. it's just this McVay and O'Connell situation. I mean, it's going to be phenomenal, because like I said last week, I definitely look at this as compelling being Ben Johnson, Brian Flores, the cliche chess match there.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at it as O'Connell and Aaron Glenn. I looked at it as O'Connell and Ben Johnson.
Right.
Here, your offense does this. Watch this. Oh, cool. That was sweet. Watch this. Okay. Cam Bynum was quoted as saying, Jahmyr Gibbs, he doesn't look at him as a cutback runner. Watch this. Okay, I'm going to run this 3rd and 4 play. Watch Aaron Jones when he runs around the side earlier in the game, Ben. And that's kind of the situation here.
My final pressure point, indeed, was just that, PA.
Okay.
It was pressure point. Teacher versus, as we would use your term, tyro.
Mentor tyro.
It's fascinating, man.
And we thank Sukup and Sukup.com for sponsorship of Pressure Points, 9 to noon. It's 11:42. Final segment. Today's around the corner. Please don't leave.
I can't wait until tomorrow. 'Cause tomorrow.
When Rams box JB Long was on the radio show earlier, I closed it by asking him, your rookie kicker, Joshua Carty, does he make you nervous? And it took him all of a half second to say, yeah, he's a rookie kicker. I backed off the mic and I was kind of like, well, okay. I mean, our guy's 30 for 30 here. So he's doing his own 30 for 30 here with the extra points and the field goals. But they, in a game that could be tightly contested, maybe a phase change is needed there because the Lions game was tightly contested. The Jets game ended up being tightly contested. Likewise for the Packers game, despite them getting killed in the first half. The previous 3 weren't that tightly contested. So there has been a play shape and a modus operandi or mode of game type change in these Vikings games. And most games are tightly contested in the first place. It's not like anybody was expecting them to go Houston Texans on it every single game, but that's when these kickers really start to matter.
Yeah,
and Reichard 4 of 4 from 50 plus. Yeah, they from 67 or 68. Sure, they would have tried him, and yeah, I believe he would have had a more than fair chance to hit it. But their kicker Joshua Hardy, 6th rounder from Stanford, he's already missed 2 extra points. He's 9 of 11 on field goals and extra points. He's 1 of 1 from 50 plus, so good for him there. But just last game against the Raiders, he missed an extra point and a 35-yard field goal. So they're starting to trip out on something called Joshua Carty a little bit. It's yearly in preparing the game calling depth chart. There are certain players. So let's see. The Vikings just played the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, somewhat. Amon-Ra St. Brown, because just putting down 4th round pick every time, I write stuff down about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then you look at his USC numbers, where I think he might have been the all-time leading receiver at USC at one point, something like that. And he ain't big. Okay. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's not the biggest guy in the world. But that just the NFL draft is continually so and by far not only the best draft of the core 4 of pro sports, but it just continually is the draft that gives people the best chance. Where you now you're going on 11 on 11 here, so yeah, you have a lot of opportunities. But like Major League Baseball, that's you got 9 out there playing, including the pitcher. But and hockey drafts, where when the Detroit Red Wings were winning all of those Stanley Cups, you would see where Pavelski was drafted, where Zetterberg was drafted, and just a handful of them super deep in the draft. But those players don't come into their league immediately. These players are drafted where they're drafted, and they're in the league competing immediately in the most physical game of all of the core 4. So it's just amazing how players can get lost in the shuffle, like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. John Randall would be the highest end example of the whole thing. I mean, you could say Brady 6th round, but I mean, Brady was drafted. John Randall is the greatest interior lineman in the history of the National Football League. And I think he went to Texas A&M Kingsville, the same school Al Harris attended. And he got lost in the equation. Why? Because of size. And there are just players who, like Tyler Johnson, Minneapolis North High School, go crazy. Number 1 all time for the Golden Gophers in receiving yards, 100-yard games, and receiving touchdowns. And Tyler Johnson was drafted in the 5th round after, I think, that Outback Bowl where he went out there kicking ass. And now he's not going to run at the combine, so that impacted it. Well, even though his days with Tampa Bay were not the greatest days in the history of the NFL, my man left it with a ring, and now he's making some plays for the Rams. But he was taken in the 5th round despite the lofty standing at a Big Ten school. But Matthew Stafford is always one of those guys where when you go deep diving on where he's been, where he is, and where he's going, there's just always fascinating stuff. Like Stafford is playing his 213th regular season game. He's been sacked 17 times, which means he's on pace to be sacked 50 times. That'd be the most in his career. And he only has 1 game this year in 2024 with more touchdowns than interceptions. And that was a win versus San Francisco week 3, and it was a 1 and a 0. So who is he? Figuring out who this fastball pitcher is that we remember from days gone by. They go winless in 08. They have the first pick in the 09 draft. They take him. So he's in his 16th year out of Georgia. And he has 15 rushing touchdowns, but only 1 in the last 8 years. But just keep this in mind because there will be pressure applied to Matthew Stafford. And if they have running backs or H-backs or whomever they use in the backfield as assistants, they better be on their P's and Q's because Stafford has 30 pick sixes in his career. That's second most in the history of the National Football League behind Brett Favre, who has 32. Strangely, given he played the Vikings so many times, 0 pick sixes for any Vikings against Matthew Stafford. But just remember that, 30 pick sixes for Matthew Stafford. We'll see if we can't get that thing up to 31. Thank you very much for listening. For Nordo, I'm Paul Allen. Have a wonderful day. The program's around the corner. Thanks for listening to KFAN.
9 to noon.
Good stuff.
The game is over.
If it's good news or money, leave a message.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.